I told you that day when I was younger, and I saw mates of mine leaving their gaff to go to one of my mates' gaff with like fucking pillows and all. And I was like, "Where he's going?" And they were like, "Going for a sleepover." And I was like, "Well, I'm not invited." No, my master did too loud. I was heartbroken. It was horrific.
On that note, Mr. Brian O'Loughlin, get out of your own way. Welcome to the podcast. That's funny because anyone who listens to the podcast has obviously heard you, Brian O'Loughlin. Welcome to the podcast before, and they can probably attest to the fact that you're quite loud.
Yeah, I'd say so. Especially if you kind of saw me day to day. Would you test that on the podcast? You think?
On the podcast, you're loud.
Yeah.
I think people who say maybe loud's not the right word they use for you now. They think you're on cocaine.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, because you have a lot of chaotic energy.
Yes, I'll give you that.
Yeah. And it's funny because I know you quite well now, and a lot of the time when we're together, that chaotic energy isn't there.
No.
So it's part of your persona, maybe.
Not persona. I'd say it's a kind of a nervous tick thing.
As a comfort.
Yeah,
mechanism,
it's something that I was again, I'm definitely aware of, and I don't purposely do. You know what I mean? But it's probably like a heightened state, like that I kind of get to when I'm speaking or whatever. You know?
Yeah.
But I think I am practicing to get it better, and even not necessarily practicing to get that better, practicing just to be a little bit more being
calm.
Not calm, no, a bit more being. As in, I told you about my psychedelic experience, but like one thing I got from that was that I don't need to be, as you said in the past, kind of like this leader or this kind of projection, maybe that I maybe thought I have to be, and I can trust that I can be a little bit more being and allow things to unfold without having to maybe kind of not necessarily force it, but kind of project that. That makes sense.
Oh, it does make sense. Yeah, perfect. Okay, today's topic. Getting out of your own way. So this is probably something that's come up in, I'm going to move this fan a little bit, but this is probably something that's come up in several different types of conversations that we've had, both ourselves and with other guests on podcasts. And the context I would have mentioned this a lot in is business. And we're going to talk about all different elements of life, but the context it comes up a lot in is business and being in your own way. And what I have said before previously is the biggest learning I have had, and still remains to this day, the biggest learning I have had about business is that my emotional resilience is what the entire thing hangs on, because I run a business by myself. You run a business by yourself as well. You now have a team, but still you're kind of a focal point of that business. You're the kind of a fulcrum in the business. Everything depends on my ability to be emotionally resilient. So it has nothing, we were laughing at business cards on the table here now and logos and websites. None of that matters. Absolutely none of it. Because almost every single thing that happens in this business, good or bad, depends on me and how I'm feeling and my emotional mood. That's what I learned earlier on. And if I'm not feeling good, the danger is I'll pull the business down. I'll stop doing the things that will work. I'll overthink everything. And that's how the business is going to suffer. And when I am feeling really good and I'm present and the energy is good, it attracts the right clients in and the people come in, and it's literally dependent almost entirely on me at that stage of the business. And you have all these stats about how many businesses, I don't know the exact stat now, but like 95% of businesses fail within the first fucking 3 years, whatever, and another 90% of those fail in the next 3 years, whatever the stats are. But it's a huge percentage of startups can't make it past the first 4 or 5 years. And my theory, which I'm very, very kind of confident on at this point, is that it's because of the person, the emotion in the business, not that it wasn't a good business idea or your business cards were shit or the economy changed or your marketing wasn't good enough. So that, for me, when I think of being in my own way and trying to get out of my own way, that's the first thing that always jumps into my head when it comes to I am the reason that I am not making the decisions I want, or where my business isn't where I want it to be, and we're going to apply that or carry that over to other areas of life. But that's always stuck in my head.
Yeah, well, as you're talking there, and I'd say like 99.9% of business owners would resonate with it. Yeah. Like you're pretty much explaining my experience of business as well. And I suppose, because me and you have talked about this in the podcast as well, when you have that awareness around it, it can be pretty frustrating.
Well, that's another layer to it, because first of all, you've no awareness around it. You're like, why isn't the business working? And then you develop awareness around it, like, I am a piece of shit, and that makes you feel even worse, which makes you make even worse decisions in the business, and you can spiral. And that's why I think the businesses struggle to keep going, because like there's been probably 10,000 times in my very short business career and your business career that we've both gone at some point, we're fucked. It's fucked.
This is the end.
It's fucked. This is the end.
Yeah,
we're fucked. It's fucked. Like almost every day.
Yeah.
We're fucked. And almost every kind of small to medium business owner, a lot of them, my clients who come in here, we get caught talking and they start to smile and nod. I'm like, do you feel that too? They're like, every day. So it seems to be par for the course, and being able to develop the skills to manage that element of it outside of the practical skills of running a business or providing a service or whatever, that seems to be absolutely key with the people who manage to be successful or to survive or thrive or whatever it might be.
Yeah, and as you're talking there, because obviously you speak to a lot of people, a lot of your clients are business owners, and I would too as well. It is nice to talk to other business owners and go, yeah, I feel that exactly, you know, because there's definitely stages in my career where I was like, it's me. I'm the issue. No one feels this
I'm
fucking
the
way.
only
Yeah,
one.
I'm the only one. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I'm gonna fucking pull this thing down, and it's all on me, and no one would ever get or feel this way like I do. But as you said, it's the norm. But maybe that's kind of an unfortunate thing as well. Because again, I'm pretty confident people listen to this, and we're talking about business because there's many other avenues we're going to talk about that
Yeah.
people can identify with as well. But I think people may be surprised that how people feel very similar, and you always hear this as well. Like your problems, your unique experiences aren't necessarily that unique. You
Yeah.
know, we are a lot more connected and similar than we are different in all realms. You know, I think this is definitely one.
Well, even outside that business world, that's a common narrative you hear around people who just don't feel good, who struggle with their psychological health, or their well-being, or depression, anxiety, all that kind of stuff.
By the way, I got a lovely comment from someone who I used to go to school with, and he mentioned my podcast, by the way, and he just said, it's great, the conversation you're having, I love the way you're thinking and whatever. And obviously a big thing that we talk about here and then on my podcast is like life and mental health,
Yeah, yeah.
etc. So I don't know why I just said that, but it was just a really nice
You
comment.
really cut me off there.
Yeah, sorry, it was just a really nice comment to get because as you're saying here about people going through these things, and then people go through these things, we all go through these things.
I am glad you actually put that in there, because it's been a real awakening and realization for me with this stuff, this podcast stuff, and having these conversations. Because sometimes I'm like, the fuck are me and Brian going on a microphone talking about our feelings for? Like, we can go to therapy. No one wants to hear this shit. Like, no one wants to. But actually, these episodes do really, really well. And a lot of people who speak to us say, like, they're some of my favorite episodes because they all of a sudden realize, oh, these two jackasses feel the same way that I do. And if they do, there's probably more people. And getting comments like that, people sometimes find a resource, or it could be a podcast or a book or a group or whatever it is. And the biggest relief that they get from it is that other people feel the same way as I do. And like with this whole conversation thing that has happened on all the blogs and vlogs and podcasts, and people kind of sharing parts of their lives and stuff like that, I think a huge positive of it, there's loads of negatives, but a huge positive of it is it's really shown I don't like using the word normalized because it's overused, but it has normalized a lot of people's emotions for themselves. They've realized, oh, okay, these guys have these dark thoughts, these guys feel this way, these guys struggle with this thing, these girls do this particular. I think that's a really, really powerful thing, because I felt that too. I got a lot of. There's two ways you can look at this. One, you can go, oh, great, he's suffering too. That makes me feel less bad about my suffering. And it's kind of like, or at least he's having a shit time too.
Yeah.
Or you could go, oh, this is actually the way I'm feeling isn't abnormal. I'm not by myself. Someone else could potentially understand how I feel. Because that's probably one of the worst parts of not feeling great, is that no one knows how I feel. Therefore, no one can understand and no one can help.
I'd even say a third thing maybe is that, like, oh, maybe this is part of the process. Maybe this is life.
Maybe this is just it.
And we're going to talk about it today about, how to potentially not let the emotions take over you, which again, have done plenty of times in my life. But like, it is just being human, and to realize that we are fucking human, and that the emotions do something.
And this is an interesting thing, because you hear this a lot with people in the kind of business advice coach space or whatever like that. People who have been quite successful who say that this is just what this is, and if you're not comfortable with feeling this way and going through this emotional difficulty, don't do this thing, don't run this business, don't try and become this athlete, because this is the price that you have to pay. And I'm on the fence with that. I do acknowledge that there's a certain level of hardship you have to go through, and you have to develop a resilience to that, because there's no way around it. There's no cheat sheet. There's no hack in most cases. You just have to put that work in. And a consequence of being in this space, whatever it is, again, we're just in the business zone at the moment, is you pay this price. You're going to have all of this difficult emotions surrounding you constantly, and you have to develop the skills and whatever to manage that and deal with that and understand that and work through that. But I also think, like, there's things that have helped me, having these conversations with you and having you and my network and having other people that we've built kind of close relationships and can share this with have really helped me with that. So I don't think you just have to grit your teeth and get through it to be successful in business. I think building better relationships and having a stronger community and
being honest about how you feel,
being honest about
where
how
you're at
feel.
and what's going on.
And it's so another benefit of doing these, like, oftentimes we'll have someone come up to us, and I know you've mentioned this several times to me as well. Someone will come up and say, this thing that you said on that podcast with Brian or whoever, I go through that too, and this is how I've worked on it, and I just wanted to say to you, if you're still struggling with that, this is how you could probably do it. And I'm like, fuck, that's brilliant. Never would have happened if I hadn't come on here and said this on a microphone. Like, this person heard this and go, oh, I know what he's saying, because I felt that too. And I've done this thing that really helped me, it would help him. And then I have that information and I pass it on to you and you pass it on to your friend. So I don't think it's you're just going to have to grow a thick layer of skin here, grit this through if you want to be successful, because there's other ways you can do that. But there is an element of growing a thick skin as well. So
yeah, and then we're obviously going to, I don't want to say too much now, but like what we're going to talk about. But then I would question, what is success then to us as well? Because again, an awful lot of times when we get in our own way, we're often chasing things we don't really want.
Yeah.
And maybe sometimes we think we do want, but then oftentimes we're actually like being told it's external or we're looking for something else. And I think that's a big thing of getting in your own way, is that potentially we're just doing what we've always done or what society says or what someone else thinks we should do.
Yeah.
And then I think that's the difficulty then of not getting in your own way, because to go the opposite or to really follow what you want to follow can be difficult because there's fear there.
Okay, let's get real clarity around that language then first before we dive well into this 10 minutes in, but before we get into the podcast. Getting out of your own way, I just want to give my frame on what I see when we talk about getting out of your own way. This is not about self-flagellation and blaming yourself for everything. It is your fault. You are responsible for how you interpret and manage and act on the emotions that you have. You're not as responsible for the emotions you have necessarily, but what you do after you feel that emotion, you are responsible for. So when I talk about getting out of your own way, I feel like in these instances we're going to talk about, I have the ability, it's empowering for me. So I have the ability to step aside and just let this stuff come through me, let myself be okay with how I'm feeling and still make good decisions, not be the person or the reason that my business fails or my relationship isn't the way I want it to be or I don't achieve what I want in sport or whatever. I have the power to do that because I am the reason that I'm not where I want to be. It's not anybody else. So for me, the frame is an empowering frame rather than being a victim and thinking it's somebody or something else's fault. I know, we were laughing before we came on here and I don't remember a time in the last 2 years when we're having a conversation about maybe struggles or problems we're dealing with that we've blamed something else ever. Because the two of us sit down and we have a chat and I'm like, oh, I'm a bit of a dickhead in this. And you're like, yep, you sure are, pal. And then you're like, yeah, I'm really struggling with this. And it's like, because you're a little bitch, man. And it's not like it's not a fucking, yeah, you are a little bitch, get over it. It's more, you have the answer. You're actually able to fix this. And if I can help you with that, great. But like you're the only one who can do this. And some people will interpret that as, oh, Jesus, that's fucking terrible. No one's going to help me. I don't see it that way. I see, okay, I have the power to just step aside and stop overthinking all of this and attaching meaning to all these emotions I have and just allow it to happen and move forward with it rather than standing in the way. So for me, I said I'm going to bring clarity to this. I don't know how clear that was, but for me, when we talk about getting out of your own way, that's how I frame this.
Yeah, and I would agree with what you said there. So maybe just give people a bit more context as well. You could potentially look at something in your life that you have been trying to achieve or something that you're struggling to be consistent with and maybe use that as kind of reference point to be like, as for this conversation. Because I think it'd be good to be like, a lot of people, for example, in our realm of say training or health, people quote unquote know what they should do, then find it difficult to be consistent or to follow these things. And deep down, they do know that they're getting in their own way. So if you could just look at maybe an area of your life right now that this conversation kind of fit into, I think it'd be a good thing to follow.
Beautiful, yeah. Okay, so we've already kind of touched into the business thing there. So do we need to go much deeper with that?
No, probably not, because you always talk about business a lot, don't we?
Yeah,
so we don't want to go too deep into it. But was there something you wanted to cover that you didn't cover?
Not necessarily. I wanted to make the point that I did make about that. Like that was the first real sign for me. That was the first real practical demonstration for me that I am the reason I'm not achieving the thing I want to achieve. And then it was a real okay. If you want to do this thing, you're going to have to learn how to correctly respond and interpret to your emotions. And you had a beautiful example there the other day as well about the waves and stuff like that, which you'll probably share with us now. But so the business realm really solidified it for me because it's right down your face the whole fucking time. Again, I don't want to hammer that point too much, but it's a really, really practical example. What was the phrase we used before? It's personal development masquerading as revenue generation. That's what a business is, especially when you start it yourself, if you're a founder or an entrepreneur or whatever.
Well, we're going to talk a bit about identity, I think, about getting out of your own way. But a big thing for me in business, though, was identifying as an entrepreneur, which kind of took me, particularly say with Movement 101, about a year or two, before I was like, oh, actually, no, I'm an entrepreneur. I have a business. I actually have to do things a certain way as opposed to maybe just wing it or just get on with the job at hand. So that was a big thing for me initially when I started with my company to be, quote unquote, a bit more successful or kind of scaling it, was to actually identify as an entrepreneur and then start to look at a different lens of how I'm kind of operating and moving day to day.
Yeah. And did you find that at the start you were holding yourself back because of like beliefs you had about yourself?
Well, more inexperience, So I would have been holding myself back from a lack of, say, information or understanding of what I probably could do. There was definitely lack of belief in some areas that were holding me back, but like I think there was a lot more systemic issues that I just didn't know about. And then when I invested in myself or mentoring, etc., I was able to get those insights and kind of be a bit more clearer. So I think that was more of an issue for me to kind of develop and grow the business. than say belief initially.
Yeah, a really interesting one a lot of people struggle with, and you can frame it as business or frame it outside business, is asking for something. So in a business context, it's selling,
Yeah.
asking people for money for the thing that
Yeah,
you do,
yeah.
and whatever belief you hold around the money is the only reason. Like, it's so funny, you talk to people, right? And I've literally had these conversations in the last 2 or 3 weeks. You talk to people about how you price your service, and I price it based on ABC 1, 2, 3. No, you price it based on the emotional attachment you have with money and the issues and the baggage you have with money. And if you are not comfortable with money, or you don't have a great belief in what you do or whatever like that, you're going to underprice your service, or something is going to happen with the way you sell or price your service that's going to impact you, and you're going to resent the clients you have, and you're going to be under pressure financially. And then you have people come in and you're like, they have a look and they go, you should quadruple this price. And you have this like a real visceral emotional reaction. And then you realize the only reason I'm not earning more or charging more or asking for something for outside business, if asking for the thing I actually want or believe I deserve, is because of me. Because this guy can just come in here and say, yeah, 4 times that, 100 times that. Like, and it's literally, it's the only difference is I have a belief around the money. So I am the person stopping me from asking for that. Now, obviously, all within reason, you can't ask for outrageous things, but just asking for something because you don't believe that you deserve that thing, that's you and a belief you have stopping you from getting something that you want or believe you deserve. So that's a huge, and a lot of people I know, I talk to, are really familiar with that one, especially when it comes to, like, if you're selling something, asking for something that and you believe it's a certain value, but you don't, on an emotional level, don't think you're worth that or deserve that, so you don't ask for it and you don't get it. And then someone else comes in with absolutely none of those emotional beliefs, or they've worked through it, they're like 10 times that.
A big thing with that, I suppose, is experience, though, isn't it? Because you can go through these emotions and work through them and learn from those experiences, and then ultimately kind of fucking transmute it and start to develop a different belief or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think, as you were talking there, like, what was coming up to me in regards to the beliefs was just that, particularly as an entrepreneur, I think, and from a business context, in any kind of professional realm, I suppose, if you're progressing, you're often moving into something new. And if you're moving into something new, there's an awful lot of uncertainty or the unknown. And that's where your self-limiting beliefs can really crop up, because you don't know.
Yeah.
You don't know what you're doing, or you're moving to something else and you're just not sure of what the path or where this path's going to lead. And that's where, then again, as you mentioned, the psychological conversations that you have with yourself, and like, you can pull yourself out of situations or not get you to act in a certain way because of those beliefs. And we're obviously big on this, and I'm big on this, of just questioning those beliefs. So you have to question those beliefs, but geez, they all pull us down. Like,
interview panels use this as a tactic when, like, people who've gone for job interviews and stuff will probably recognize this, that because I was chatting to a friend of mine who would be involved in a lot of interview boards, and they'll actually say, like, tell us what kind of salary or whatever you're looking for, and they let the person, because they know 95% of people will undersell themselves because they're afraid of asking for what they actually want. So if we set the mark and set the bar and tell you this is how much the job pays based on what we think it's worth, it's probably going to overshoot what you'd set for yourself. So we'll let you speak first. Tell us, Brian, what would you looking for in recompense for this job, or what would your salary level be at, or whatever thing. And most people will undersell themselves because of a fear or a belief that they have. And then anybody who understands that process or doesn't have those emotional issues with it will, like, double that salary. And the board will go, okay, yeah, we had a number in our head. You're still under that number, but like they're kind of taking advantage of the fact that they know most people are in their own way when it comes to this stuff. So you speak first, and then you're probably going to way undershoot what we were willing to give you in the first place. So we'll go with that. We'll go with that number. It's mad, isn't it? Let's get outside the business and the money realm then. Another one I would be quite familiar with is sport, right? And I mentioned it before, and it was something that was really brought to light recently enough with the new management team we have in, and our manager is very tuned in with this kind of stuff. And it's this idea of FOPO, a fear of other people's opinions. So again, an emotional belief around what other people think
is
about you.
Is that actually a thing, FOPO? That's an acronym that people use. I've never heard that
Yeah,
before.
well, I think it's relatively new.
Right?
There is a book, I can't remember the author, so this is a ridiculous thing to say. There's a book, I can't remember the author, I can't remember the name of the book, so that's a completely irrelevant point, but it talks about this psychological phenomenon in sport specifically, where a lot of people will underperform. You mentioned it even earlier on there about golf.
Yeah, of course.
What was the point you made? Most of these golfers...
Well, I think it was Padraig Harrington that mentioned that at that level, pretty much all the golfers are all brilliant. They're all at pretty much the same level.
Skill-wise.
Yeah. Again, it's not number 1 and number 50 are pretty much literally at the same skill level. The difference is the mental capacity or the resilience that they have in order to perform under massive pressure.
So when you get up there on the 18th hole, you need a birdie. Everyone can hit the ball the same, and they all know they can, and there's like a 1% variance, but the difference is the guy's going to crumble under pressure and the guy is not, and that's a mindset and a belief, and that's you being in your own way, because you have all of the physical capabilities to do the thing, but it's the emotional side of things that's going to let you down. And this idea of FOPO as well, it was so interesting. We had a talk before one of our big championship games last year, and a huge theme was probably going to let you down in an occasion like this is not the scale of the prep, because you've done it all. You have the skill, you have the preparation. You're here at this particular moment in time based on merit. We've earned our position to be here on this stage at this level. But the thing that gets most people at that level is the fear. What will other people think of me? If I don't have a good game, people will think I am not a good person. It's linked with my identity. I've got a fear. And it's just that emotional stuff. First of all, will fatigue you. And then when you're on the pitch, it'll pull you out of what you're supposed to be focusing on, which is trusting the process, applying the sport. So you've managed to pull away from the process and the thing you did to get you there, because now you've got a level of fear or a level of imposter syndrome, or you're thinking about what other people are thinking about you. Therefore, your performance is affected and you can't apply the skills that you know you have. So same kind of thing. So this idea of FOPO in sport, that like being in your own way, I have felt that so often. I've so often come off pitches going, I know the level I'm at. I've played the sport a long time. I know what I can do, what I'm capable of, and I have decades literally of proof of what I can do. I couldn't do it today. Why? I was fucking terrified of what people would think about me. The pressure was on. There was a narrative around this particular whatever it might be, all emotional. It was just me. And you come off and like you'd have a debrief with the manager or whatever, and they'd be like, "What happened?" I can't explain it. I wasn't injured. But they're like, "Were you injured? No. Were you sick? No. Was there something wrong? No." It's in here. I was literally just in my own way.
Well, you mentioned, because Shane Flynn mentioned to you about kind of playing with fear as opposed to say playing with play. Because I listened to, I mentioned to you, Johnny Wilkinson's podcast on the High Performance podcast from 4 years ago.
Yeah.
I listened to it 4 years ago and really liked it. His mindset and his way of thinking is amazing. But I didn't really understand it 4 years ago. But I actually completely understand what he's talking about now. And he talked about this idea of training and playing, well, particularly training and practicing with fear. So he was known as someone who would constantly practice, the 10,000 hours thing. And it was like, God, your mindset's amazing and you always do it. But he was like, it was pure fear. I felt like I had to keep practicing. Otherwise, again, I'm less than, or I'm going to fail. The whole week was just all based around fear. And now he's a coach for a kicker with some, I don't know if it's the England team or some professional rugby team. And now his whole mantra and ethos behind the coaching is like, let's just explore this moment. And can you allow yourself just to do it? Because you know how to do it. Like, you're so skillful. And if you can just allow yourself the freedom, again, to be playful, and in this moment, that you can have that trust that you can do this. And it's just like, it seems like a small little subtle reframe. But as you mentioned there, like, you'll go into a game. And I'm big on this now lately, the idea of intention. If you're going into a game with fear, the intention is fear. Like, you're missing things. You're not seeing things. You're not being creative. You're not enjoying the process. So all of a sudden now, you're working against your body. You're working against your mind. The heart rate probably goes up more. Everything is just against you. And it sounds like a really simple thing to do, but I think that's the whole point of all this stuff, is like, it's a practice that you're trying to move in with real intention and just keep getting better and better and better and that. But then the consequences are loss. And again, what people think of me. And a lot of that stuff is psychological. Yeah. But it is a real thing because we're playing a game and there's people who take the time and all. Like, it's a funny thing, man, sport.
And it's compounding. It's a feedback loop, because if you have that negative belief going in, you underperform, you confirm that negative belief for yourself. Like,
and going in the next time going, this happened last time.
This happened the last time. And now I have negative proof. Now I have proof that I am who I am saying I am, which is...
Because would you say over your career, like, because it's a funny one, you've probably lost more than you've won. Have you? Like, I know it's impossible to say the answer right now because you don't know, like, in terms of the games. But like, if you look over, your career, because I think it was a Federer or something? I think he was saying something about like that he's won just over, I think, half of his points in his career. So Roger Federer is one of the most successful tennis players ever, and he's just won over half. Again, he had to win as more than the opposite, but he would have lost so much. So the idea being, can you deal with the inevitable failure or the hardship? But again, talk about, as we're talking here, the emotion, the reframe. What's the intention behind this difficult scenario? And potentially only difficult because we're saying it's difficult. Like, missing a shot in the tennis game, it's not the end of the world. Even if it is your career, it's not the end of the world. Yet again, it is the end of the world. From a sporting perspective, I play fucking five-side football, man, and get pissed off when I miss a shot. Yeah. You know what I mean? So, like, I don't know what I'm saying. Am I making any sense?
No, because what you're saying, it's linked in with something we're going to kind of touch on towards the end of the podcast, but it's attaching meaning to all these different things and allowing your emotion to kind of validate that meaning in a negative way. I'm trying to pull up the thing about Michael Jordan, because the one I've heard is the Michael Jordan one. Like, I've missed 9,000.
Oh, yes.
I've missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I've lost almost 300 games. I don't know what the percentage is in terms of what he's gotten
One
to what
set, yeah,
like
yeah.
has he missed more than 9,000 but he scored 2,000, or has
Yeah.
he scored 90,000? I don't know what those stats are. But I think where the problem comes in from an emotional standpoint is the meaning you attach to those missed shots. So those missed shots are not just a consequence of me doing the thing, which is fine. Yeah, you win some, you lose some. It's the same. Like I know, we're not going to go back to business, but like the advice you hear a lot is if something fails, that's okay. That's part of the process. But what we would feel is if something fails, I am a failure. I'm attaching meaning to this thing failing. And there's probably a million different reasons why it failed. But if I say it's because of me, and I know at the start of this podcast I said if my business fails, it is because of me, because I'm in my own way. But if something happens that it is part of the process, it's not always going to be a positive thing, because sometimes somebody will say no. If your meaning that you attach to that is I am a failure because this person has said no. If Michael Jordan's meaning was if I've missed this shot, it means I'm not Michael Jordan anymore. I'm not who I say I am, or who these people say I am. Then you're going to crumble, because that's not sustainable. Like, you're going to absolutely crumble. So I think with the football stuff as well, like if I lose this game, if I don't catch this ball, if I don't get this goal in the five-a-side, if I don't come out, because like the five-a-side one is funny, like if you're anyway athletic, like you want to be the guy, you want to leave and everyone go, oh, fuck, I want Brian on my team. And you leave going, I've scored 20 goals. If you've only scored 7 goals that day and someone outscored you, you're like, fuck, who am I? What am I doing? That's not what that means. That's just what happened that day. So,
well, I think even as you're explaining there, because this is the whole point about like getting out of your own way. Because when you are hopping on that pitch, you're projecting what's going to happen. So all of a sudden, you're not in the moment. So you're just not living or doing the thing that you want to do 100%, like with any real intention or presence. And therefore, you're not giving it the best shot, and your chance then of not doing as well is higher. And I think it's what most of this is our projection or our meaning, or pulling ourselves out of this moment that we have. And then you mentioned the process, I think it was beforehand. I think that's the whole point. And you always hear this. It's always about the process. It's not about the outcome. But I think the fundamental truth in that is that if you can be fully engaged in the process, you're more than likely going to get the outcome you want. And not because you're doing it for the outcome, you're doing it 100%.
Yeah.
And if you're, again, go back to, say, business or sport, you're a very good football player. Like, we're very good at what we do in terms of our business. If we do that with 100% intention and presence, pretty confident we're going to be okay. Because we've had moments of that, and we've all had them, especially in the sporting context. I always say this to my athletes, particularly my professional footballers. The reason we're training them the way we do is that they have access then to the control of their whole body to perform. So if a ball is there, they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 options. Not like, I'm going to do this thing. The brain, the body has real trusting. I can actually go for this ball here. So you don't think about that. You don't think about when you're on the pitch. So if we can just get more intentional and more present, there's more opportunity, there's more creativity, and there's more likelihood of succeeding.
Yeah.
Because we don't know what success is. Like, we do have an outcome, but the way to that success can be so many ways, apart from just one way that has to be, or we're going to be fucked up.
Yeah, and by providing more options, you're removing more obstacles, which the obstacle is...
Well, even that, by providing more options, I think, because I think it's the whole point of it all then, because to go back to flow and all, you're more creative, you enjoy the process, again, you're present. It goes back to the process.
Yeah.
You're just in the moment, and the moment then is everything. So what the fuck could it be?
Yeah.
And I'll go back to, I'll take it for business. Like, when I started Movement 101, it was never about an outcome. It was all about exploration. Like, what way could we train? How can we help clients? What could we do? When we started Telos, it was all about, let's now look at this from a different holistic perspective. There was no outcome. I'm not doing any of this for, like, I'm going to get this money or this thing. And I've had so many moments in my career where I've done that, and it's been so effortless and so easy, because it's exactly what I want to do. I'm in the process. I'm in the moment. I allow things to unearth from me. And then the opposite of that is, a client has left, or I have to get a client in, or what the fuck am I doing? Like, and I'm not present. I'm fearful of what's to come, of what this means, and it's like, and I said to you previously as well, when I'm in that frame of mind and I'm successful, I don't even enjoy it, because I'm not fucking here.
Yeah.
I'm so worried about what's going to come tomorrow.
Yeah.
So I'm not even enjoying my success, quote unquote, that I get, because it's like, I'm not even fucking here.
Yeah. And that point you made there links really nicely into another element where this rears its ugly head is pain, physical pain. Because we both have backgrounds. I trained as an AT, which is a kind of sports specialized physio, and you obviously have a long career in movement and pain and training. The association and the meaning we attach to pain really affects our outcome. And I remember hearing you speak about this in the early days when I knew you, and it was a lot of Movement 101 stuff I was seeing, and it was all about that idea of exploring and not attaching a meaning to this pain. Just because you have back pain doesn't mean this. Just because you think you have rounded shoulder posture doesn't mean this. It doesn't mean that you have an issue or an injury or whatever. It's just pain. It's just pain. And sometimes pain is an indicator of something, and sometimes pain is a symptom of something. And it could be a symptom of how you think as well. And pain is like that model of pain. It's quite complex, and you get into the kind of psychosocial model of pain as well. And the narrative and the story that we tell ourselves around, oh, my shoulder is sore, therefore I have a sore shoulder and I have an injury and it must be protected and I must change how I move and change who I am because now I am a person with a sore shoulder. That's a whole story, and people might be listening to go, what the fuck is he talking about? But in my experience and in your experience, which is a lot of experience combined really in this field, that is huge in predicting how somebody is going to either respond to a program or recover from their pain.
Live their life.
Live their life, literally.
How they interact with their relationships and what they believe that it's possible in life. Like, I've seen it all.
Yeah.
And even this, the catalyst for me was, I had shoulder pain for 4 years and looked to be fixed and paid thousands of euro with loads of different modalities and massage and chiropractor, etc. I got some short-term relief. And I remember going away to a weekend training, high-intensity thing, and I got through it. And for some reason, it like gave me the license to explore. I was like, okay, I don't need to move pain-free. I can just let it go. I had a breakdown of a 6-7 year relationship when I was in pain. I look back now, I was massively depressed. I remember I was in the industry and I felt like a frog because I couldn't lift and do loads of movements that I was teaching clients to do. It massively impacted so many areas of my life that I didn't realize at the time. But like that small little shoulder pain was so far removed from shoulder pain, it's not even funny, you know? And then that license of exploration, number one, got me moving pain-free. Allowed me to move into this space of Movement 101 and now Telos. It was ultimately an amazing experience that I was able to transmute into something really, really, really good. Because even when you look at pain, again, all the research will show you that in most instances, particularly in pain, when pain is over 3 months, it's classed as
chronic.
It's chronic. It's not called chronic anymore. It's called persistent pain. But chronic pain. So once over 3 months, it's classed as chronic or persistent pain. Normally, after 3 months, the tissues would have healed. If it's not a bone break, the tissue would have healed. And if that's the case, then the pain is still persistent, then we know it's not a structural issue. Now, why you have that pain, I've no idea. It could be a number of reasons. But pain, you can look at like a fire alarm. When the fire alarm goes off, that fire alarm is real, but oftentimes there's no fire. Maybe it needs the batteries changed or the windows being open, any reason of why that alarm is going off. So then it's just a question of, can I look at different aspects of my life? But then go back to in terms of getting in your own way. I remember going to physios, going, fix my shoulder. I wasn't sleeping. My relationship was breaking down. Yeah. I wasn't fucking training. I was eating like shit. I genuinely was depressed and felt that my life was over. All those things are going to impact my pain experience.
And you've probably, because I definitely had like tens and tens and tens, if not hundreds of clients over the course of my career in that space come into me and tell me why they were in pain.
Yeah.
That come in and say, I have a torn rotator cuff, so I'm in pain. And I'm like, why are you even here?
Yeah.
Because they want to come and get the solution to their pain because they believe it's external to themselves. And that's a belief that they have. Now, look, full kind of clarity around this is sometimes you have an injury and it gives you pain.
Yeah.
And pain is not always metaphysical or in your brain or whatever like that. But a huge element of the level of pain you have and how you recover from your pain and your outcomes with your pain are attached to how you think about your pain. And when someone comes into me and says, I have this pain because I have this injury, or I've had this pain, I just always have this pain. That's a story. That's a belief that they hold, and that's a version. That's something they are telling themselves, which is holding them back from actually getting improvement. A way I've actually applied this practically in my own life, and only recently enough to be fair, not in a reckless way, but like I'm now in my mid-30s, and I recover a lot less quickly than I used to, and I pick up a lot of bangs and stuff with the level of football that I'm playing. But I've stopped telling myself that that's a problem and that my age is an issue. It's not. Like I'm playing football with guys literally half my age, literally 18 years younger than me. These guys are playing football with me, and in my head I'm like, I'm the same. I'm still a body. I'm still moving. I've loads more experience. I've loads more potential because I understand how my body moves more. I understand how to recover, etc., etc.
You have a level of strength from training over those 18 years that they don't have.
And now, like I picked up a relatively serious. It's not serious. A relatively serious injury for a footballer about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and my recovery has been so much quicker because in my head I was like, I still have swelling, I still have pain, but that's okay. It's fine. There's a bit of structural damage, but it's very manageable if I train myself and hold myself in a certain way. And I went back and went through the protocols, so I didn't go recklessly just jump back in after an injury. But because I was like, I accept that I have a bit of pain and I'm going to have a bit of pain with this within certain limits, I can work through this. And it feels amazing now. And I'm 3.5, 4 weeks after this injury where I thought the season was done. And that's not like me saying, I have the superpower to recover really quickly. But I have a bit of pain and a bit of swelling, but I'm just accepting and acknowledging because I now know what the cause is. And if I really lean into that pain and fear that pain, I'm not going to play football again. And whereas if I go, okay, this is very manageable, it's quite safe, I can work through this. And then I built the proof. I've able to play 2 games. I've done 6 training sessions. I'm like, okay, this is absolutely fine. I still have the bit of pain, but it doesn't mean anything necessarily. I monitor it, and if it gets much worse or there's any indicators, yeah, sure.
No, but again, you see, because it's a mindset shift. This is a big thing we work with our clients and tell us. And obviously from a physical perspective in their 30s, 40s, 50s, but then even like moving and starting a business or moving career or doing whatever they want to do because of my age, I can't. That's just a belief. Yeah. A belief that we can question. I was training with James Hampton, who's on this podcast before.
Shout out to Big James.
Hello, Jamesy. Jamesy 27, I'm 37. And we were training and we pushed ourselves as deadly. And I literally turned to him going like, I'm 10 years older than you, and I would never even question it. I wouldn't question I can't or I shouldn't or I should feel a certain way. Why would I? Because there's so much in my control in regards to what I can do. Like I said, I've got experience, I've got education, I've got a knowledge. Like so many of us hold ourselves back because of our age because, it is, but that doesn't have to be the case. I was going to say something there, I'm not going blank. But I suppose aging and pain and holding ourselves back, oftentimes it can be a difficult thing to accept maybe. Maybe that's why people don't do it. Because I suppose for me, if you were to tell me at 24 or 5 years of age, a young man who's a little bit lost in life to go, you're a dickhead, in the nicest possible way, you're the reason why you have pain. It probably would have overwhelmed me in the sense of, oh, really? Oh my God, what should I do? And I wouldn't have been able to accept that information at that time. And hence why I suppose probably struggled for 4 years to kind of get out of it, So as we're talking here about pain and about aging, some people, they'll think this is just hogwash and it's not, because they're genuinely not in a position to accept this information to go, okay, I can make this change. Because there's just too much to change. There's too much opportunity or options that I can go down that I feel massively overwhelmed. And as a result, I'm going to freeze and do nothing.
Yeah, I think that's why I feel the tone is important too, how that's delivered. Like, it's your fault can be said in 2 different ways. Yeah. You have the power and the control to change this is one way, and you've put yourself here is another way. It's not even
your fault. It's your responsibility. I think it's a different thing, isn't it? Because it's no one's fault. I mean, we are what we are, but it's definitely our responsibility to make some level of change.
Well, no, I actually think in this situation, it is your fault that you're in your own way, but it doesn't mean you're to blame.
Okay.
I think
no, fair enough.
Trying to separate these concepts is difficult, especially today when like everyone wants something to blame, and it's usually the opposite political side, or someone has a different belief to me, and they're to blame for this, and they're to blame for that, and the government's to blame for this. There's this element of blame. So without shame or blame, let's remove shame and blame, right?
Yeah, fair enough.
For a second, let's just remove those. And I know they're natural human occurrences, but we'll remove those for a second. It is your fault, because you are the only person in control of what's happening at the moment. Like, external factors aside, if your belief around pain is what's holding you back, yes, maybe that belief was instilled on you by society or whatever, but no one else can take responsibility for that. So it's your fault and responsibility at the moment, but you're not to blame for it.
Yes.
There should be no shame around that. If we use the overweight one sometimes, it is your fault that you're overweight because you're the one who's putting the food in. But it might have stemmed from a belief or an environment that you have. So like, you're not to blame for that, but no one has moved your hand. So I'm trying to separate, like, yes, environmental factors are extremely important. Let's stick with the weight thing for a second. You might have had a really unhealthy relationship with your family around food, or might have gone up in a certain area or demographic, whatever. There's loads of cause factors. So let's remove the blame from you. You're not to blame, but it's your fault. And it's your responsibility. And how I'm saying that is, that means you can change it. Not that you should be blamed for this. Not that we should point a finger at you. That we can say, look, this is all you. Like, you can do all of this by yourself, and we can help you. And we can change all of maybe the environmental things. We can help you with that. I don't mean me and you necessarily, but like, this is the messaging. Because you can change everything. If it was somebody else's fault, we'd have to bring a third party in and change their behaviors. We don't. We just have to change your behaviors. Yeah. Now, nuance. This changes if you're in a bad relationship. Yes, other people's behaviors affect yours. If you're still living at home with your parents, yes, other people's behaviors and environment affects yours. But ultimately, you do have the power to make those decisions in most cases, with most things. And that's really empowering, because you can get out of your own way. And that's all you need to do. And sorry, this is what I'm getting to. It's all coming through now. in a lot of these cases, it is just about getting out of your own way. Yes, you have to change behaviors and habits. That's really difficult. But to start, you can literally just say, okay, I'm going to allow this to come true. Okay, now I can work on this. I can see the answer.
I think that's a big thing that you mentioned there, that like allowance. I'm not going to allow this thing without putting a narrative or a meaning or an outcome of what I'm doing right now.
Yeah.
So take it back to that sport analogy, as I mentioned, about being present and exploring or being curious. I think, can we do something in this moment that we know is going to move us towards something, but not necessarily because it's going to move us towards it, just to do it in that moment and to see what it brings in the form of a result or an action. Like I said, they always say, like, you win or you learn. Like, you're going to get something from this outcome that you think is going to move you forward. And if it does, brilliant, let's continue on. And if not, you'll learn something else and we'll explore in that moment for the next thing. I think that's the biggest thing. When I get overwhelmed from business perspective or something like that, I stop that presence, exploration. I get too fixated on the outcome or an emotion. And the emotion often is, say, fear or shame or something negative that I would project negativity on it, which then, like I said, pulls me out of the moment, stops the exploration, this moment, action, etc.
Yeah, I like that. Before we dip in, because we're dipping into the practical strategies, which is great. Just before we do, one more area that I felt this come up, and you kind of expressed this as well, is being a parent.
Mm-hmm.
Being a parent, and specifically, I think the conversation around, am I ready to be a parent? I need A, B, C, X, Y, and Z before I can become a parent, if that's what you want, if you're planning to become a parent. And the meaning and pressure that we put on ourselves in that particular position to I have to do all these different things and be this certain person before I can be a parent. And as a parent, and you're a parent as well, of multiple children, we don't know exactly how many, but there's definitely
I got 2 anyway.
I have 3 living in my house. So, but that conversation and story and narrative for me is another way of you being in your own way. And I think with this specifically, this topic, like in most cases, when the child is born, if you just allow yourself to be really present in that experience, you'll be absolutely fine.
Yeah,
absolutely fine. Now, again, I'll throw this caveat to be the fucking banned in this podcast. Sick children, all this kind of stuff is a different story. It's not as simple as that. There's other complications. But in the vast majority of cases, we are very good at doing this. We're very good at, if we're present and in the moment, recognizing what needs to be done and like getting our hands dirty and supporting each other and helping raise the child and doing all these different things. If we're very, very present and we're actually able to say, okay, I'm needed here in this capacity to support my partner or to help the child do a thing or whatever like that. But by telling ourselves the story of I need this and this and this and this and this, for me personally, I'll share my story. Well, how that manifests is I'm telling myself I need to have my professional life at a certain point and my financial life at a certain point and all these different things at a certain point. And thinking about all of that pulls me so far out of being present that I'm not good with my kids sometimes because I'm not present and I'm not able to recognize what they need and communicate well with my partner and really be present in their lives. And that's all they really need, because when I'm like that, I recognize, okay, what the kids need right now is a bit of play or a bit of calm, or they're hungry, or what my partner needs right now is a bit of space or a bit of support, or I can recognize that when I'm present, but so many times I'm not, because I'm telling myself this story of, in order to be good here, I need to do all these different things and I'm not ready and I haven't done it. So I'm an imposter, so I feel shit. So I have to focus more time on these things and do 70, 80, 90 hours and it completely pulls me out. So I am, in the vast majority of practical applications, being worse because of the way I'm thinking and applying myself to what this is. Whereas I find if I just go, okay, I am now just here with the kids. And that's it. That's literally it. Everything is better. I'm recognizing more. I'm engaging more. I'm just a better parent. And I do believe that for most of us, in the vast majority of cases, if we take that pressure off ourselves from a logical and cognitive point of view and just trust this process and allow it to happen and be there, I think we do a pretty damn good job in the parenting side.
That word trust is everything. And I think that's the issue when you have, again, moving into a new space like being a father or a mother. And again, the business or the sport, there's an uncertainty there. And you mentioned that, we keep going back to it, beliefs. So I would have beliefs in my 20s of I want to be a parent, but can I be? Like, again, the responsibility and me being a man, how could I do it, etc. And I mentioned on this podcast, I'm pretty sure, that it took me about 8 months to connect with my initial child, Sailor. And I love her to bits. We have a phenomenal relationship right now. But me and Gigi's 10 months old. And our relationship is so much tighter, quicker, because my belief has just been transmuted, has changed based off my experience with my first child. I would have had that belief of being like, oh, can I do this? And again, the responsibility, again, the narrative of the future that's going to come down the line. So I'm not present right now with Sailor. And that just took a bit longer to kind of get there. But yeah, as you're talking there, two things keep coming back is your beliefs. So around how you act into this new thing that you're doing and apply that to ending in your life. And then the process itself, being present in the process and not trying to understand what the hell I have to do or I need to do in order for this outcome that's going to come, because it just pulls you out of being now.
Yeah.
Because it's so fucking easy when you talk about it. You know, but when you the same principles keep coming, your beliefs and then presence. Yet again, it's the emotion, it's life, it's external things, those factors that we allow consume us.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So let's wrap this one up with some practical takeaways about how we've started to work through this and maybe have started to take that little side step. It's a little toe, just getting out of our own way, because I'm still firmly in my own way. I still can firmly see all the areas of my life where my beliefs about who I am and what I do and what I need to be and all that kind of stuff are holding me back. I
think it's important because I'm the exact same as you. Maybe that's life as well. That we're never going to have this always 100% clear and right.
Yeah. No. And again, like with all these conversations, I think what we're not trying to say, this is the meaning of life and is how to have a better life. It's every step I seem to take towards stuff like this, like every millimeter I move out of my own way, it just seems to have positive outcomes everywhere in my life.
Yes.
So I'll just do more and more of it to continue having more positive outcomes. I don't know if there's ever a state where I'm like, my emotions are over here and perfectly managed and my practical and I have everything down. I don't know if that exists, but I do know is that the more I'm able to actually implement and practice this and integrate this stuff, because we talk about a lot of stuff, we integrate very little of it. But the more I manage to integrate, the better I do feel,
100%.
And the better everything seems to go around me. Like, let's run through the list. In business, more clients come, things just got like when I've been feeling better and being a bit more present recently, and the phone's off the hook. It's gone wild. Like, just people have been attracted to something around that energy or how I'm being or putting something out. My family, I just mentioned how that works. The more present I am and the less I tell myself I need to do all these things, just the better I am. The FOPO thing, I've gone through that in the last year. It's really been like why the Shane Flynn conversation really hit home with me, is just trying to remove that story around, hey, this is who people see me as and this is what I need to be to actually have to
value,
to have value here.
Yeah.
Now it's just like, this is fun and I'm doing it because it's fun and I'm having way more moments. It's not even close to being 100% of the time, but way more moments of like, this is really fun. I'm really enjoying this. And then I'm expressing myself better. And then people are like, wow, that was class. I'm like, oh, wow. But there's no like, yes, okay, I did it. Oh, it was class. Yeah, because I really enjoyed it. And then in the physical pain, I gave an example of that there. Like, so I don't think there is a mecca moment where I'm like, oh, full clarity, everything is amazing. But I do know that the more I can integrate this stuff, the better in general my life, my outcomes are. Would you say something similar?
Yeah, definitely. I didn't actually mention remember the emotions and the ocean. I think it would be good
brilliant.
for me.
Yes.
Because this is just a big thing for me recently. Richard Rudd is where I kind of learned this. Now, I've heard this, Alan Watts and different people kind of talk about the ocean in particular. But if you look at the ocean being us, so we are essentially the ocean, and the waves then just being the emotions that we're going to feel in life. So that could be joy, pain, fear, ecstasy, like whatever emotion is. But basically being that those emotions are part of us. And a big thing for me has been when I do feel fear, particularly say from a business perspective, rather than me wanting to feel that fear, because I'm afraid if I consume that fear, it's going to literally consume me and then bring me down a negative path or something awful. I'll just work more, or I'll do some, I'll do something to not have to feel that fear. But if I then look at the ocean being me and this fear being part of me, okay, it's just a wave. So that wave now is just coming in, and I can just go, Daddy, I'll sit with that wave. I'll allow that wave to unfold, and eventually that wave completes and it transmutes, it's gone, and it's not. And actually it begins to go quicker when you begin to sit with that, So that's just a big practical takeaway for me. And the idea with emotions is that, can I just sit with whatever emotion is coming up? So I mentioned I'm doing this practice called contemplation. It's a meditation practice, but I found it difficult to meditate from a meditation perspective of like, go back to your breath. And I like Sam Harris's app was really good for me, but I always had a disconnect with it. But now what I'm doing is contemplating, which is essentially listening to music, closing my eyes and allowing whatever comes up. And then like often for the first 5 or 10 minutes, my monkey mind's going mental and loads of things are happening. But if I just then find something, I'm just allowing that thing to unfold and just following it, and not for any outcome or reason. And it's just been really, really good. It's allowing me to be more present. It's allowing me to see the emotions that I would deem as negative and go, I'm going to sit with that for a second, and then I can actually feel it and let it happen. So that's just a big, real practical step for me to get out of my own way is go, okay, I have to feel everything that I'm feeling. And I can deem it negative or positive, but if I'm looking at the ocean as me and the waves being part of me, all of these are normal. All of these are okay. All of these should be sat with because they're a part of being human.
Yeah, okay. I like that. So what I'm getting from that is the story bit, what you're telling yourself. So it doesn't mean, because this is sometimes where I get a little bit confused about it. It doesn't mean, say, fear, right? Say the emotion is fear. It doesn't mean that you're not feeling afraid anymore, but it does mean that you're not telling yourself a specific story about why you're afraid or attaching it to things in your life that you can justify the fear.
Or distracting myself and running away from what I'm feeling. So again, if you look at the likes of alcohol and stuff for a distraction, people will use porn, etc., not to feel what they're feeling.
Yeah.
And for me, for years, and I was depressed for those years when I had that shoulder pain, I remember feeling terrible and not wanting to feel terrible. So I just wouldn't sit with how I was feeling.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't understand that at the time, but I look back now with a lot more experience and understanding and education to go, I couldn't just sit with that feeling.
Yeah.
Because I thought it was going to consume me, again, through the narrative or my past experience. But what I found now is that it's okay, just sit with it. And actually what I have to do is sit with this, because this is life. The waves are the ocean, i.e. me. These emotions are going to come up because life is life. And if I keep running away from it, I'm ultimately running away from myself or this emotion that is going to rule me. And I don't want to be ruled by these emotions because they've ruled me way too much throughout my life.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So you're feeling that fear, you're feeling afraid, but you're just not telling yourself something about it. You're just going, okay, I now feel afraid.
So, for example, literally what I do, if I feel afraid in this contemplation, I have my eyes closed, I'm listening to music, and I go, well, where do I feel that? It could be in my stomach. And there's a knot there. And rather than me go like, I don't want to feel this, or let's get rid of this knot, I'm trying to feel into that knot what it is. I don't know how I'm doing it. I'm literally just focused on it. I'm just focused and allowing whatever the hell comes up. And my biggest thing with regards to meditation was always like in my head and then go back to your breath and trying to figure out how to do meditation.
Yeah.
But I'm not. I'm just allowing. Allow whatever comes up and follow, allow, and not try to, again, the outcome or the reason, the meaning behind what you're doing. And I'm only doing this properly like recently, and I can feel the benefit, but it's allowing me to explore and go deeper. And it's a practice that I want to keep continuing to do to allow me deal with my emotions or accept my emotions.
Yeah, I like that. To carry over a similar one to that, then you mentioned win or learn. And I wrote beside it here to tell a different story about what does losing mean. So it's not losing anymore. Now it's learning. Yes. And as soon as you just change that story for yourself and change that perspective, now when you lose, it's okay. You feel upset, you feel angry, you feel disappointed. That's all absolutely fine. But your frame is now, okay, all these emotions, I've just felt them. That's fine. It's a normal reaction to losing. It's normal. It's human. It's disappointment. But there's learning here. And all of a sudden now, that is a positive reframe on something that's going to happen. You're going to lose. You're going to miss 9,000 shots if you're Michael Jordan. You're going to kick the ball wide. You're going to lose the game. You're going to lose the girl or the guy. Something's going to happen that you're not going to be in control of. And you're going to go, okay, I feel really shit about that. So it's not about, because I think sometimes this is the disconnect. You're like, well, so I'm not supposed to feel shit about it. I'm supposed to feel really positive and grateful for something that happens. No, feel shit. It's shit. Feel absolutely shit. But it's now called learning. It's not called losing anymore. So it's just a different story I'm telling myself. It's now a wave that's going to pass through, and I'm going to allow it to pass through. And what I'm definitely not going to do, and we touched on this in a previous podcast, is make a decision based on that particular moment. I'm not going to react based on the emotions. And that's the Stoic philosophy as well. Allow the emotion will happen, but it's the space between the emotion and the action that's important. Is that a Gabor Mate bit as well? A lot of people are exploring this now. The space between the emotion and the action. And it's the action that often leads us down a bad road, reaching for the point or the phone or whatever it might be, or allowing the emotion to take over and dictate, I'm never playing the sport again, or I'm going to fucking throw a tantrum, or I'm going to fight with somebody now when I go home, or whatever like that. It's just, okay, I feel really shit, fine. But now I've learned something. This wasn't a futile exercise, and it's part of the process. It's part of life. It's part of the game. It's part of sport. It's going to make me better in some way. And all of a sudden, doing that multiple times, I think, you start to kind of retrain and reframe how you're thinking about the emotion now. It's just an emotion, and it's happened, and it's normal.
I actually think you transmute that emotion.
Okay, transmute is the word of the podcast for you today. I've said it 6 times. Will you just explain for people what that word means?
That you're essentially changing what this emotion is. We'll call it fear. Just call it fear because that's often a bad feeling that people feel. That bad feeling is able to be accepted, and it changes into not even a positive thing, but just it's not dark, it's not terrible, it's not fear, it's not negative.
Yeah.
You've accepted it, so it's now gone. You've literally, because again, for me, right, when I feel fear, I can feel it in the pit of my stomach, right? I can feel this thing that's there. And then oftentimes I was running away from that feeling, again, do more work, do whatever. When I sit with that, because I don't want to sit with it, I'm allowing that to unfold, that can then just go. So now all of a sudden now, like, that fear doesn't consume me, that fear doesn't turn positive, it's no longer there. So as a result, I'm not now being run by that emotion. I'm able to be a lot more present. And I feel so much better now that I can be exploring, I can be curious, I can go back to being a much more playful manner with whatever the hell I'm doing. I don't have to be run by, again, my past experience or whatever the hell's going on. So I think that's the whole point of all this stuff. Like you end up transmuting that, again, that we think is a negative emotion, but it's only negative in the sense of that it's ruining us and we don't want to sit with it.
Yeah.
But if we sit with it, we realize, what's that Joseph Campbell quote? The cave you fear to enter is the one that you should be leaning into or fucking seek or whatever everything is. But the reason being that, like, we think this thing is going to kill us or consume us or it's bad. But when you end up sitting with it or moving into it, it's not that.
Yeah.
It's just really scary because it's unknown, it's uncertain, and potentially we've just run on autopilot or ignored it for a very long time.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, lovely. I love that. So practical strategy number 1, sit with it, acknowledge it, understand it, and tell yourself a different story around it. Any combination of that.
Well, I actually think, I think a stillness practice, and we've talked about this in the past, you know what I mean? Like, again, I'm using some degree meditation, but I think what I've found for me doing this practice is this has given me license to kind of explore my own way. It doesn't have to be fucking the meditation or the one thing that everyone's doing, you know? But yeah, sorry.
What's the music that you use out of interest? Is it specific?
Well, the music, sorry, the app that I use, because it was a thing, and again, it's not necessarily just this music. Well, let me just give it to you here because it's really good. Triple Flame, it's called, and Triple Flame is
that's an app.
Is an app, sorry, yeah. But it's really good because it gives you 10 minutes, 3 minutes, or 1 minute music to use, and then I'll just do that throughout my day. So if I'm free for 10 minutes, I'll do 10 minutes. I'll do 3 minutes. I'll do 1 minute. But the idea being that I'm actually using that throughout my day to contemplate, to think, just to fucking.
I'm going to give it a go. I'll tell you in the next
Genuinely?
podcast. Yeah, I'm going to give it a go. Yeah, because I like those. I like the way it's. You don't have to do 15 minutes every morning.
Yeah,
you can break that down into bite-sized pieces and fit it in wherever. Because that's where I struggle. It's like, okay, I'm going to have to do this thing every single morning. It becomes a chore, a task, and it's outcome focused.
So basically, I get a notification every 3 hours, and it gives me a quote, and I look at that and be like, do I have time? Do I not have time? If I don't, I leave it, and if I do, and oftentimes I do, because it goes off every 3 hours.
Yeah.
So from 6 a.m. until 9 p.m. in the evening.
Yeah.
So, and I do it every morning anyway, so not because of that, but then that just goes off, and sometimes I'll hop on.
Okay, I'm gonna give it a go. And what I will contribute to this in terms of how I like to frame this and look at this and a strategy I use in terms of trying to get it of my own way is perspective, changing perspective on things. So what I like to do is really zooming out, because a lot of the time when you don't feel good or you're in that moment where you're like, oh shit, and you're down, you're trying to make a decision or whatever like that, or the day isn't going the way you want it to go, if I'm able to like get real perspective on this day. So yes, every single day is important and time is important, but when I zoom out, right now is not my entire life. So it's one tiny moment that probably in an hour I'm going to forget, or a day I'm going to forget, or a year I'm going to forget. At some point it's not going to be that relevant to me anymore. So when I zoom out and detach the significance of that emotion in the moment right now, I can all of a sudden go, okay, fine. And then I can kind of get into the zone we spoke about there in terms of now I have a different perspective on what this is. I don't feel good right now. And that's fine, because last week I felt good and tomorrow I'm going to feel good when I zoom right out. So that time frame is now different for me when I look at like my entire life or a year or whatever it is. So I'm looking at this tiny little point on the scale of my life and I go, okay, that's fine. And I'm going to have all these little blips along, but I'm going to have lots of good blips. I'm going to have lots of ecstatic blips. And this is just what my life is going to be. Great. Okay, now I can come back into the day and go, pressure's off. Pressure's off me right now, because I can not feel good right now, and it is not going to change the entire trajectory of my entire fucking life.
Yes.
Because at some point over the next while, this too shall pass, and I'm going to feel good again, and that's fine. Okay, so now I can feel a bit shit. Go back to the process. What was I meant to do today? Yep, here's the list. Okay, now these things are not so pointless. Why am I even doing this social media post today? Why am I writing this fucking email right now? Nothing matters because I'm shit. And I'm like, I'm writing this email because I said I would write this email. Let's just write this email. I feel shit. That's fine. Absolutely grand. And I'll probably have to do that several times during a day if I'm feeling really shit, the day's not gone what I want. But I'm no longer, the day is fucked, my life is fucked. The whole thing is over. I'm not catastrophizing everything now based on how I feel right now. And then what I try and do, if I can get that little bit of perspective, I then go, and you know what? Didn't get a great night's sleep last night. Kind of ate a bit of shit over the last couple of days. Okay, no wonder I'm not feeling great. And then I'm like, okay, great. I caused this again. That's fine, absolutely. And without spiraling into a pit of blame and shame, I'm kind of like, okay, so I can eat a little bit better, drink a little bit, take the pressure off myself today. Don't self-flagellate. Just do the things I said I was going to do. And we're back on track. The next day, I'm like, wow, that was actually quite. I remember texting you last week, and I was like, felt really flat in the morning, and got to the end of the day, I was like, for a pretty fucking decent day.
Yeah, got things done.
I'm after blasting through all these different things because I just didn't allow myself to spiral off, sit watching YouTube videos, eat shit food at lunchtime. As I got up, little walk, drank the water, and just got back on track and did the things, even though I wasn't feeling great. But I didn't tell myself that there's no point doing these things anymore. I just got a bit more perspective for myself, and then I came back into it. So I find that kind of helps.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
But obviously, giving myself space and really going deeper with this and understanding why I'm feeling these feelings and allowing them to pass through me is another level that I can add to that.
I think even as you're saying there, because I said to you off podcast, like, I'm very big in this now. My journey with psychedelics over the last 5 years, that I genuinely believe that when we die, from a soul level, that we're not gone. Right? Now, again, what that means, I don't know. Like, we go to a different energy or a different realm or world, I don't know. But I really genuinely believe that we're not gone. In the physical form, we are gone, but we're not gone as like souls. And what I've been trying to do, and I want to lean more and more into, is that kind of perspective shift. Like, if I really believe that, then, like I said, this one day is absolutely fine.
Yeah.
I don't need to bring or tear everything down, or this negative emotion has to cloud my whole judgment in this moment or this day or this week, because I believe when we die that we're moving elsewhere. So I think it's really important, that bigger, whatever perspective, or whichever way you want to do that big picture perspective, because just the distraction and the information overload every single day that we're getting, we can often struggle to get that bigger picture, you know? And we talked about a previous podcast about creating space and all that.
Yeah.
And even like that meditation practice to some degree is creating that space. It is so important. And even these conversations are really important for us, because like, then you go, okay, I have a different perspective. Maybe what I've been doing hasn't given me the opportunity to deal with these emotions or accept these emotions as well. But I do know now that I have action steps or a different way of living moving forward. And then the opportunity is there again. And the empowerment is there again. The responsibility, default, it's not a bad thing.
The opportunity, Brian, never went anywhere.
Yeah. It was never gone.
It was never gone. You just couldn't fucking see it.
Yeah. But and we've all felt that though. You know, when again, you think this thing is going terrible and nothing changed apart from your perspective.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it's working really well. And it's like, it was always there.
Yeah.
The opportunity was always there. And this, remember, mint flows, I said, because we talk about beliefs a lot. The idea of opportunity always being there, we're obviously focused on one point. So we're looking left and we don't see right. But right, i.e. the opportunity, is there. We just don't see it. It's the exact same with our beliefs. Our beliefs are, we're looking this way because of our past experience or our education or whatever. But the other opportunity of the belief is here. We just don't see it. So again, we can give ourselves the space or the bigger picture perspective to go, oh, there's actually something over here. Can we then explore that? Can we start to lean into that? And then that's when we start to change.
Beautiful.
It's class.
It's class. It's
But
class.
I think...
Do you know what? We're fucking class.
No, but it's not even that we're far from class. But me and you, I think, are at the level of our fucking journey of life.
Step one, pal. That's where we are. 1%.
Well, yeah, whatever. But I do think two of us here, the last couple of months, we've had kind of big perspective shifts internally, I think.
Agreed.
We've started to see our own failures in the sense of getting in our own way continuously. And again, having some level of empathy because we did the best we could do at the time. But then through those lessons has allowed us to start to look maybe at that other perspective that we haven't seen. And there's been a shift, I think, in yourself and myself over the last while. So let's keep leaning into it, is what I'm fucking saying.
Yeah, 100%. So if we come on the next podcast crying and...
Yeah, more likely we will. So.
yeah, giving out. And we're going to do another 75 hard because we feel shit and that's the answer. You'll know this hasn't worked.
But I think, what do you think though, anyway, that kind of perspective, would you agree?
I would absolutely agree. I felt it. It was highlighted for me with the Shane Flynn podcast. I felt it.
Yes.
We discussed this a couple of times. I definitely feel a shift in how nothing has actually changed.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
But I feel a shift in how I'm living my life in certain areas. And it's just the perspective. It is just this. That's why we want to, I think, because we were discussing, like, we've 50 things we could talk about, but we always want to make sure that it's, and you're policing this quite well, that it's not just fucking waffle. We just come on here and waffle for an hour, that each time we sit down to do this, there's a quietest.
I still think it's waffle that we talk about.
We just keep coming back. And people listen, so it's fine. So the reason I think this particular topic really came to forefront for both of us today, because we had a bunch of things floating around, and we were going back and forth.
Yeah.
As we were going back and forth, all we were doing was cutting away all the shit and realizing, this is the thing.
This is it.
I think that's because there has definitely been a perspective shift for us. I think we're starting just to look. It's like you're looking at something this way, and we're starting to slightly tilt our head this way, and the thing hasn't changed. We're like, now I see, like abstract art. What the fuck is this? And you're like, oh, okay, that's what.
And then what I would say with that, then, if anyone's listening to this and maybe is having a perspective shift in their life, whatever, but maybe we had to experience what we had to experience in order to have that perspective shift.
Like I said at the start, I believe there's an element of that. I do believe there's an element of you need to taste it and feel it and touch it to understand what it is. And I also believe there's an element of someone might listen to this and it might help them with a bit of understanding. It definitely, having the conversation has even helped solidify it more in me, because like we'd have these thoughts.
Ah, yeah.
But when we have to sit down and organise them in a way that's like, and we're just over the hour now, but in a way that's kind of coherent, I hope this is somewhat coherent. When we have to do that, it really helps me go, okay, this is the thing I've been thinking about for the last 6 weeks there. Yeah, and I'm going to verbalise this, and you're going to give me some feedback on this, and then someone else is going to go home, and Jill's going to go, what the fuck was that?
Yeah,
that's absolutely
that was terrible.
That was terrible, Dan.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll be better next time. But yeah, I think that's very, very important. So I think, yes, you do have to experience a certain degree of it to understand what it is, and to have your initial perspective of, that's what this thing feels like. Because if you don't know, the fire's hot.
Yeah.
But
yeah, so sorry, go back to that analogy, because you're dead right. You keep fucking touching the fire. Eventually, it's like, look, mate, stop touching the fire or just jump in.
Yeah.
Because like, and again, we've done this ourselves.
Well, every time we fucking see each other, I'm like, your fingers are black there, Brian.
Yeah.
Why is your toe black? Why is your hair on fire, Brian? It's like, I touched the fire again.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
But again, giving yourself to some degree, knowing that you want to get away from that fire, you do want to change. I think it's important. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like, again, not fucking stopping, leaning in to do it because it's difficult, or you keep falling back. You know, that is okay. And again, like we always keep saying this, but like, we're far from fucking gurus. We are far from having all the answers. The reason, again, that we have the conversation is to get it out of our heads, to get a bit clear of how we think and how we feel and what we're doing. Yeah.
Well, look, as always, I appreciate you. I appreciate the conversation. I appreciate the insight. Thank you very much for your time. Are you selling anything? Do you want to sell anybody anything?
No, I am. Well, I mentioned that I'm changing my name and all that.
Well, you just have, so you're going to have to.
All right. Well, we're changing.
What are you going to go, Brianna?
Well, no, I'm going to change. So Move It 101 is changing, like, formally into Telos.
Yeah.
So that's what we're doing now. So obviously we've had our Telos platform for the last 2.5 years, and like that, just the kind of messaging and what we do and how we genuinely help clients is going to be like much more at the forefront. So like, this conversation is coming at actually a good time for me in terms of that kind of idea of presence and exploration and curiosity. I'm really excited about the next phase in terms of my professional life.
Yeah, well, genuinely, what you do is fucking phenomenal. I've been saying it for years, so I'm really excited for this to start to come true.
Thanks, man.
And for to shed the
movement.
Not even the movement, just shed the story that you've been telling yourself for the last 5 years. This is what it is, and this is the only reason we're successful or whatever. That, because I know that's not what you believe. And to see this coming true, it's exciting for me as well, because I get to watch it and I get to see how it all comes together, and it's amazing. Like, you and the team are doing a fucking phenomenal job. So the very best of luck. We'll probably get an update on that the next time we speak.
Yeah.
And thanks for your time.
Pleasure. Thank you, sir.
Peace.
Bye bye.